Good morning, everyone. This is Jeffy Kennedy, author of Epic Fantasy Romance. I'm here with my first cup of coffee. Today is Monday, May 6th, and if you're on video, you will see that my first cup of coffee is not really. It's my Starbucks cup, so it's actually the very end of my second cup. I always feel like it's important to confess these things to you all. So I was up early and took poor Killian in for to have his toxic masculinity removed. Um, Apparently, that was not Marcella who said that. I think maybe it was Kelly Robson. Anyway, one of my clever friends said it, and Marcella got the credit. But so I dropped him off early and I had a cup of coffee before I went, and then I stopped at Starbucks, and now it's all gone. My treat for having dropped off my kitty. I know it's fine. It'll be fine. I'm hoping it'll be fine, but it's just hard to leave them, isn't it? It's hard to leave them behind. But they said that they would be texting me updates on him. I'm going to put a photo of him on the show notes he doesn't look like a mean tomcat. It's so funny because he is so gentle and so loving. And it's just like he loses his kitty mind when he sees Jackson. And I can tell that he's even kind of confused by it himself. Like he doesn't know why he can't stand the sight of Jackson anymore. Uh, so everybody has been a little bit disrupted in our happy household, but hopefully we will get it handled. So yes, keep crossing your fingers that the neutering will work. I found over the weekend my contract from the breeder, and it doesn't say anything in there about him not being neutered. There's like other stuff, like vaccinations, all this kind of thing. It says nothing. And it's her standard contract, and it doesn't say anything about spaying or neutering. So there we are then. Thank you to all of you who listened in and sent me very nice notes. I got lovely notes and phone calls and so forth. From people I don't even normally hear from. So that was really nice. And all the sympathy. I feel much better now that like maybe I didn't. I still feel like I screwed this up, but like maybe it wasn't entirely my fault that I screwed this up. So yeah, there we are then. I did get decent words done on Friday, so maybe it kind of helped talking about it and buckling down. I got 1,600 words, so that was better. And I know I've said this before. Um, those of you who listen to the podcast for a long time know that everything in my life is an iterative process, which means and maybe it is for everyone, going back and trying new things. And so I know I've said this before, but I think I might actually be like embracing the concept that I think I'm not actually sustainably writing 3,000 words a day. It just hasn't been that way for a long time. Over the weekend, I went and looked at some of my actual numbers again. And, I think I'm just going to change it to shoot for 2,000 words a day. That's really the level that I am writing at. Yeah, at best. And so I don't know if it's me having changed a little bit, trying to back off the intensity. I think that's part of it. Um, I don't know. Some of it might be age, but also I do know that a lot of it is trying not to stress myself out so much. I've had an interesting conversation with a friend of mine who has been self-publishing and doing rapid release, and she had started doing it because I was doing it, and I guess I didn't realize that. But there was that year. What year was it? 2021, when I was trying to release a book every 2 months, and I pretty much did. 2021 and 2022, between those years, I released two, three, four, five, six, seven. I did 7 books in 2021, and in 2022, one, two, three, four, five. I did 5. Um, but it's hard to do. It does work. It really bounces up the income when you need it, which is fantastic. But it is also hard. It's hard to do. It's draining. Um, and I have to realize that part of the reason I was able to do that, to write and release at that intensity, is because it was still pandemic and I wasn't traveling anywhere. And the travel has an impact. But the travel is also partly necessary for my job and also something that I enjoy. So, um, I'm not a big fan of the whole work-life balance thing, and I've been seeing some people commenting that men never talk about work-life balance. That this is not a thing that's a problem for men because they have other people to balance for them, right? The have wives to handle stuff. And I know a lot of you men listening that you are not doing this kind of thing, but that when they ask about work-life balance, a lot of times they're asking women how they are handling a career and handling running everything for the home. Uh, so that's interesting that I didn't realize that was part of my knee-jerk reaction to the whole, like work-life balance thing. Uh, but for me, it has to do with um, just trying not to push myself so hard. This is like my whole, I'm like going through this whole emotional evolution review and all this kind of thing, and realizing the ways in which I push myself, that I often joke that my boss is a bitch who does not give me any time off. And it's been pointed out to me that like, maybe that's not a good thing. Um, Go figure. Um, Jennifer Udden, speaking of, like gender imbalance and work-life imbalance, she had an interesting discussion in her Substack newsletter. I'll link to that. But she said that she read this book, Cal Newport's Slow Productivity, The Lost Art of Accomplishment Without Burnout. And she says she had some really interesting observations about it. But she said he puts forward suggestions on how you can arrange your work life and personal life to maximize creativity and productivity. Um, and she said she didn't take issue with the advice, but that it assumes a basic level of privilege, because he suggests things like paying someone to take care of your laundry and clean your house. But if it's a source of burnout and stress that you don't have the money, it's harder to swallow that, she says, which I think is a really good point, like she gives this many of his historical examples of people who ruthlessly arranged their own lives to maximize creativity are laughably unrelatable. I love Jen. She says, I love her work, but Edith Wharton dropping completed pages to the ground for a maid to pick up as she writes from her bed is not a helpful example. Yeah, if only we could all have this. So she also talks about another example he gives of John McPhee spending 2 weeks at his country home on top of a picnic table, looking up at the sky. Sounds like a super romantic way to write one of the most lauded New Yorker articles of the last century. But Jen can't help but wonder who was doing his laundry and raising his kids during all of this pondering. And, it's a really great point. And really, who among us gets to simply soak in creativity, right? I mean, I'm incredibly privileged that I get to do this full time, that I am able to make a living doing this. I do have a lot of mental space to think about my stories, to contemplate the flow of them and so forth. a lot of mental silence that I've worked hard to establish so that I can hear the stories. But, um, there's also a lot of life to take care of. And I appreciate all of you saying to me to give myself grace, that I have been dealing with a lot of stuff. I love it. I appreciate all of you. I feel like I'm at this point where I'm like, but I don't want to be dealing with a lot of stuff. Can we just make it so that I'm not having to do that? I suppose none of us gets that, right? Uh, I've talked often about being aware of authors as people, and that they go through things and they can't always deliver stuff on time because of health problems. And it is one of those things, like it's a cliche. At least you have your health. I have my health, and I'm reminded of I have writer friends who are struggling with health issues. So at least I'm not dealing with that. So that's all a bit of rambling. Um, let's talk about industry. I saw kind of a funny thing yesterday. I can't tell if it's like the way Threads serves up content. It might be. I've noticed a lot of people talking about it because I see a lot of really annoying things on Threads about writing and publishing. And it really seems to be fertile ground for people to be wrong on the internet. So, like it's surfacing things for me that other people are jumping on and saying, this was a stupid thing to say. But I did see someone saying, like discovering, saying, what? Is it true that some people actually send out ARCs, advanced review copies, that aren't fully edited? This doesn't seem like a good practice. And I kind of want to say, I actually want to whip out the F-bomb, and I will not do that because I'm trying to be good. But I want to say, where the F have you been? I mean, did you learn anything about the business before you fired off your stupid opinion? Uh, and of course, the answer is no. It's like people don't understand what the point of advanced review copies are. And just in case, apparently there are rampant ignorance out there, right? So, for those of you who do not know what what an advanced review copy is, so it is a copy intended for reviewers that is sent out in advance of publication, and it will say, let me see if I can find one. Hold on. Because remember, traditional publishing came first. Like it or not, traditional publishing is called traditional publishing for a reason. So here is, if you're on video, here is an ARC, an advanced review copy of The Tears of the Rose that Kensington put together. It does not have the cover. It just has a plain green cover with the title printed on it. And up at the very top, it says uncorrected proof. Now, uncorrected proof means that it's not fully edited. It's and inside it says things like dedication TK, which means to come. That's acknowledgments TK. That's because they weren't done yet. So this went through developmental edits, probably through line edits. I don't recall exactly, but it had not gone through the final proofing, and I had not turned in my dedication and acknowledgments. I feel like it's not hard to learn things, right? But here I am shaking my cane, but it's so easy to Google stuff. And how do people not find out things? It feels like willful ignorance at times, right? An advanced review copy, yeah, is supposed to be not the final. It's not that you get a free book in return for reviewing, which is how it works out a lot of the times. But you don't get the fully finished final product. Maybe some people do. But anyway, that is not a valid expectation. Uh, yeah. So, it's interesting because there are so many people entering writing and publishing without really knowing uh, how the whole profession works, without knowing the correct terminology for things. And sometimes when I talk about this, like when I say things like what many indie authors refer to as the blurb, which I think it's not on my, yeah, this doesn't even have what is called the back cover copy. And it's called that because it's usually what you see when you pick up a book and you look at the back and you read the back cover copy, right? Unless it's a hardback and then it's on the inside flyleaf, but we still call it the back cover copy. And a lot of indie authors call this the blurb. And I've talked about this before on here, I know. Uh, and people will push back on me and say, well, but that's what we call it. We don't have to call it what traditional publishing calls it. But this comes back to the thing of that we are all in the same profession. We are all in the same business. We are all trying to do the same thing. Why would you deliberately choose language that is not what the established profession calls a thing, right? And I know the answer to that. It's that indie authors very frequently don't want to have anything to do with traditional publishing, right? We're doing our own thing. We don't need traditional publishing. Traditionally published authors snubbed us, therefore we will snub them. And that's just not productive. That's not how we work together as a community. We need to be able to talk about things in a common language, have a common understanding of the basics of the profession. A lot of people get into self-publishing or independent author publishing because they like the control and being able to do it themselves and everything. But you're not necessarily a lone wolf out there. Maybe you are sometimes, but I don't want to say safety in numbers. I'm trying to think of what phrase I want. Really what it comes around to is working with other people, right? I think some people as writers think that they can do this and not have to work with other people. But I have to tell you, you're always going to have to work with other people. That's just welcome to the way the world works. And I advise you all to polish those skills. It was interesting when I was at Apollicon, I went to a dinner. I'm going to be cagey, even though you all can figure out what I'm talking about. But I went to a dinner hosted by a publisher, and it was a small group at a very nice restaurant. And they had wisely ordered just a few dishes for the table to share. Instead of like having everyone order their own entree, they had ordered several different entrees, and they gave us a nice little tasting menu, and it had the appetizers and then the entrees and desserts and everything. It was beautifully done. And there was one author who was invited, who had recently been picked up by this publisher, had started out in self-publishing, hit it big, very, that instant success thing, which is both a blessing and a curse. We could all wish for that, but it's really hard on people who don't have experience in the profession, in the industry, because for many, many reasons. But this person did not show up for the dinner, had been counted in for the money the publisher was spending on this dinner, but did not show. And it's not a good look. Um, People think that when they hit it big that they are the shit. And yeah, you are for a little while, but when you're no longer so hot, people will remember how you treated them, right? That comes back to that line. It's one of the greatest pieces of advice about being careful how you treat people on the way up, because you will surely see them again on the way back down. Um, it's great if you're at the top and you are getting all the attention and all the sales and all of this, but when you're not getting that anymore, you have to think about who is going to be your friend then, who's going to want to talk to you, who's going to want to support you, who's going to send you lovely messages because you're struggling with your cats. So thank you all. I value you being out there and listening to me, and I will talk to you all on Friday. You all take care. Bye-bye.